with a strong resignation to soul truth. I love to go into deep and profound spiritual chats, as a one size doesn't fit all. And by that I mean in hearing different viewpoints, listeners may hear the same thing, just articulated in a different way from different people. However, getting it is what counts. Resonation is the key. And I love swaps and shares of knowledge in videos like these that we're doing together today, as these are all a way of being in service to others. So today, I'm both honoured and delighted that Jean Decode is with us once again. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back.
That's wonderful, thank you. I'm especially grateful as we received such great feedback after our first video back on the 22nd of August, and I'll put the link down below afterwards if anybody's missed it and wishes to watch it. Now, I know personally that I've had souls contact me directly to thank us both. One who is grateful that we covered forgiveness, as it was just what they needed to hear. So, Jean, would you like to share any feedback too before we begin today?
Yes, we had a lot of good feedback on the Rumble too, where we posted it. A lot of people really loved it, so that's why I was eager to come back on and have you ask the questions that you didn't get to ask last time. There were some comments that they said would like to hear Ginny's more, so this time it'll be more you and not all so much me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I don't know. It may still be more you because I absolutely love it, and I don't think you ramble at all.
Yes.
So well, I'd like to open with sovereignty being today. It's my belief that our own inherent essence of being is sovereign. And when we take self-responsibility to live in harmony within the frequency of our true, authentic, sovereign self, I believe we're living in the present moment where everything flows. So our power is to own our life, our thoughts, our emotions, beliefs and perceptions, understanding that we always have a choice and free will. Freedom to be whatever we want to be. And in the evolution of humanity, the more souls who live from their true authentic selves, the more this helps the whole collective of humanity ascend towards that blissful state of transcendence. When we own our sovereignty, we are the true masters of our destiny, neither controlled or manipulated by any person, group, or institution. We have the power to walk away from situations, people, and communities that do not honour our sovereignty. We can do this at any time we wish. And I'd like to share one thing that's helped me with this, and it's also helped me to be out there and be seen a bit more this year. And it's my acceptance of now to live in my elder being. I accepted responsibility when I was triggered by being called a crone on numerous occasions, realising that I had some work to do there. As we chatted together with the person, I recognised they were actually complimenting me on my wisdom and knowledge, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, we need you out there. We need you," because they're like half my age. So I'm really grateful to them, and I now do my best. This is only recent, probably the last month or so. So I now do my best to stay true to who I am in this present moment. And what it's doing is it's bringing in a shift in direction that's more aligned to my own evolutionary soul path. So I wondered, Jean, could you share your interpretation of sovereign power and how you personally honour your sovereignty?
So first I wanted to comment about what you said, is that something I've learned. And in growing up, a lot of us, or many people, are told to, kind of set yourself aside to fit in and to be, to fit in means you have to kind of be in the normal mode of how people are. That never worked well for me because I'm not how other people are. The kids I went to school with, my friends, I had only one friend all the way up until high school. And then I wound up having, at that time, three good friends and finally a fourth one. But we didn't bond on like talking about stuff or sports or that stuff. I was an avid downhill skier. My parents got me on skis pretty much right after I started walking. So by the time I was in high school, I was an extremely good skier. And so, they wanted me to help them learn to ski. And then I also was raised the same way, backpacking and hiking and rock climbing. And so I shared those things with them and taught them how to rock climb and stuff like that. But other than that, the regular stuff that the things I read, the things that I'm involved in was private to myself. And it wasn't until I went in the military, I got my first submarine, I got pretty well ostracized because I'm so different. You're always with people, so you can't hide anything. And once I got qualified in that first submarine, I literally learned to speak the language. It was in the Philippines, the submarine. And so I learned to speak Tagalog very quickly. Half the crew was Filipino anyway. And so half the time you heard Tagalog around you all the time. So I learned how to speak it. And then they suggested, how to do it. And I, first listened to it, then learned one or two words a day. And then get comic books once we got back in port and read comic books and then get a item on how to conjugate your nouns or not your nouns, but your pronouns and things different, how to conjugate anyway. I'm not getting the right word here, but anyway, I wound up living off base right away as soon as I could after I got qualified, and I went out of the main city where the military usually hangs out in what they call the barrio, because you're only around people. The military's not out there. You're only around the natives, and I immersed myself in their civilization and their culture and all that, and I loved it. And they were fine with me being, I'm already an American, so I'm different. And they were just fascinated with all the different ways I am and all of that. And so that's pretty much how I continued the rest of my military career, is honoring my individuality and not trying to bury who I am, because I'm not going to, and most people bury that and wind up forcing themselves to fit in. And if you don't fit in, that means you're honoring your true self more. We're not supposed to be the same. God created all of us individual. And it's this turn the other cheek stuff that people think that's what Christianity is about. And in a recent interview, we were talking about Jesus Christ was not a turn the cheek guy. He overthrew the money tables. He stood against the Pharisees and the Khazarians, the same people at that time. He stood against all the powers that be at that time. And so, of course, he paid with his life, but that was an ultimate gift for all of us. So in the way we are is to honor yourself and your uniqueness and to just learn about yourself. If you bury that in you, think about the things that brought you joy when you were young, and don't worry about it. Like when I first started coming out, and the guy that I was with, he was like certain things, he said, don't share that. And I said, I can't do that. I can't not share things. I was on the backside of his platform, and he said, could you not say that you talk to trees? And now it's coming out that you can talk to a tree and hug a tree, and they can measure the responses on the tree, and the tree is actually enjoying it. It has a positive response that's pretty significant, and it goes through the roots of the tree into the mycelium, which is what converts all the soil to nitrogen that the tree needs, and it connects all the trees everywhere, and then all the other trees around are reacting too. So you're getting shared by more than one tree, and vice versa. So it's a way of honoring, and that's why I love being in nature, because for me because nobody ever told me you're not supposed to do that. And I spent a lot of time when I was very young, 2, 3, 4 years old. My parents would go up and climb big, huge mountains, and I wasn't able to, so I'd stay back in camp by myself. I'd be talking to the trees and the fish and everything else, and they were all talking back. So I'm like, okay, well, just because later I learned other people thought I was crazy, well, maybe because you're deaf or something. So I don't worry about so much how people look at as time goes on. People start to understand things, and it's all coming out now. A lot of these things are coming out now. So that uniqueness is something that is important because God made you that way, and it's something to honor and really, really, so get into that. So, it's part of why, like, the only sports I did are something you can usually do pretty solo, like skiing, rock climbing. I did it free, so you could do it by myself. Once I got about 12 years old, I'd been climbing since, again, I'm 2. So by that time, I hardly need, even for vertical stuff, I hardly need any belay or anything like that. So I just go out and climb by myself and all these. And that's kind of how I honored myself, and I honor the nature around me. And then I had tons of DEVA friends. So in high school, my friends would come in on Friday and say, see if I wanted to go skiing, and I'd be playing with these Matchbox models of yesteryear, and I'd have them all lined up, and they go, what are you doing? We're having a race. We? Who's we? I go, me and my friends. What friends? The little people? They're all dressed up in their finest. The ladies got the hats and the umbrellas, and the men have the tuxes and the top hats. We just wanted to ask you if you want to go. They just look at each other and go, I don't know what to say. We just want to ask you if you want to go skiing tomorrow. Got a car, so we're going to go up there. Yeah, sure. So they were just like, they never said, because they were really nice, but they never said, boy, are you weird. Of course, once I got in the military, boy, are you weird. And pretty much, especially once I got it online as Gene Decode, when the world named me that, they said, boy, you're weird, but you got a lot of information because, again, I don't do sports except for martial arts, backpacking. So what else do do? Most people are watching football, basketball, all that stuff. I'm not. I'm reading. I am reading like one of the first things I read was the Encyclopedia Britannica, cover to cover in 1 year, all of them. And then I read the I Ching, was the first major book that I read before I started, for a book report. And it took me like 8 years to figure out what it really meant. And understanding. We talked about that the last time. So for me, honoring who you are is honoring your uniqueness, the unique part of you, of how God made you individual, a unique person, and not to, if somebody doesn't like that or like calls you a crony, in my case, well, of course, wouldn't call me a crony, may call me an old man, but hey, how dude, but is to not worry about that. And it's amazing. I was up at a hot springs in the mountains, and I would love to go from the hottest pool. They call it the lobster pot, which would be barely bearable for most people. I'd ease my way in until I'm sweating like heck, and it's right on the edge of a river, which was running at about 45 degrees, and it'd go down and jump in the river, and it just flushes all the toxins, and it resets your adrenals and all kinds of things doing that. And all the adults were like, no. And then there was this young man who was about 12. And we started talking, and that place was closing, and his parents go, we got to go. And this boy was brilliant. We were talking about calculus and differential equations, and I was teaching him Vedic math. He never heard of it. He picked it up right away. He was learning calculus off of it, Vedically, and all of this stuff. And he loved like the music from my era, which is kind of strange, from the folk days into the beginning of rock and roll. The stuff with like the different early rock music in the 70s and stuff, not so much the acid, although I do like some Pink Floyd and some of that. And you say, oh, I love Pink Floyd. I'm like, you know who Pink Floyd is? Yeah. He goes, do you like the Eagles? Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. I got all their albums. I go, you have their albums? He goes, yeah. And I go, you mean record albums? He goes, yeah, it's the best way to go. I go, most people don't realize there's a huge difference. So in that uniqueness, you can find amazing people along the way. And being able to share that with somebody, especially someone young, and he just asked questions endlessly. So I think that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. It did. And yeah, I mean, I'd just come into that realization about that. So by changing my perception on crone to elder, it just flicked the switch. And I've been called weird all my life. It doesn't concern me at all. But I seem to have been able to, all my life though, sort of fit in all along the line, whether it be Prince or Pauper or whatever. So I'm not quite sure how or where that comes from with me, but yeah. So I love that, and I resonate with that. Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment on that. Also, way years and years and years and years later, I've been going to a few high school reunions, and it was like the 35th year high school reunion for graduation from high school. And, I was pretty much a loner except for my three friends. And, we just did things to go skiing, rock climbing, so I didn't much talk to people at all. In fact, I got sent to a counselor in middle school in 8th grade because they thought I couldn't talk. The teacher said he never talks, and nobody has ever heard him talk, if you can imagine that now. I was extremely introverted at that time. So, she asked me if I could talk, and I said yes. And she says, why don't you talk? I don't have anything to talk about with these people. There's nothing to talk about. She goes, well, what kind of things do you like to do? And I started outlining it. She goes, now I see why you don't talk. You're weird. I go, yeah, and maybe I'm not weird. Maybe everybody else is weird. She goes, that's the definition of weird. You don't fit in. I go, I don't want to fit in with them. I don't like what they do. I don't like the way they treat each other. The cliques, you have the jocks, and I lettered in cross country, so I was a jock, but I had hair down beyond my shoulders, so I'm a hippie, and I had big bell bottom pants and walk around with my shirt out and all that stuff. So the jocks didn't want to hang with me. But at the same time, I have above a 4.0 because I was taking college classes that are a 5.2 for an A. So I'm a nerd, but the nerds don't like me because I'm a jock and I'm a hippie. So it's like don't fit into anything, So she goes, yeah, you're definitely going to have troubles fitting in life. I go, I really don't care. I mean, I can do what I have to do and get work, and just like here, I do the schoolwork, I go home, I do my stuff. And I do everything I do here fine. I'm, beyond most people on the GP. I'm in the top, beyond the top 10%. She goes, well, you may have a point there. So, and she says, so what's this thing you're reading all the time that you're doodling?
Yeah.
I go, it's the I Ching. She goes, it's the what? I go, it's the Book of Changes. She goes, what's it? Show me. I go, explaining it to her. She goes, what's it supposed to be? I go, I'm working on that. I'll figure it out. Give me a few years. It takes me a while on some things, So it's just, learning that uniqueness. And then when I went to this high school reunion, I didn't talk to girls at all. And I went to this high school reunion 35 years out. And this one girl that I had kind of a long distance crush on, she was gorgeous and very quiet like myself, but I was too scared to say anything. And so she came up and she said, did you know I had the biggest crush on you? I go, no, why didn't you say anything? I was afraid. Well, so was I. So, it's just interesting to know that people, the last people you would think, she was gorgeous. I thought she was so far out of my league, it's not even worth trying. So, and I talked to a few girls, but I don't know what to talk about because I don't fit in again. So it was just interesting to learn that when you think you don't fit in, you'd be surprised who may be really like looking up to you. I had another guy at that same reunion, a guy that came up to me. He goes, "Did you know you were kind of my role model?" I got him, what? He goes, yeah, you are so smart and you had such good grades, but you're so athletic and you're like really amazing skier. And I mean, just everything you did, you are so good at it. It's like, I wanted to be like you. I'd be like, just be like you and you'll be fine. Although I'm probably 35 years late. He goes, yeah, that's what I realized. You're just yourself. So that's exactly what I did. So, well, I said, well, at least I helped somehow. So it's just interesting. I just wanted to put that in. Thank you. Back to you.
No, that was lovely. Thank you. I love that. And it sort of fits a bit in a way with where I'm going with my next question, I think. Because I've got a strong belief, I've got this really strong belief in our spiritual essence of being and our creativity. So AI is something that I just do my best to avoid. I'm not sure that I avoid it 100%, but I do my best. And I don't understand why AI is such a big thing now. So I wondered if you could share your thoughts on AI first, Jean, and is it here to stay or not?
Well, it's here to stay as far as 3D. As the human is going through ascension now, and it's going to terminate, the ascension process is going to be done very soon. And a whole lot of people will be going to 4D and 5D and won't be around as far as 3D people concerned. For 3D, yes, it'll be around. But what it does, I thought about that question myself because I kind of it just rubs me, not the right way. It's like against the fur, so to speak. How you rub a husky the wrong way, they like, stop that. They like to pet with the lay of the fur. It rubs my fur the wrong way. So why is it that especially the people in the younger age groups really flock to it so much, and there's so many people behind it? And I realized it's because the traditional ways of getting information have changed so drastically in the last, since the internet, that it's a way of verifying and getting information without having to do the hard work. Like when I was in college using my GI Bill after I retired, the internet was just still a military thing, and it was very in its infancy. And so I did a paper on AIDS and the creation of it and the funding of it. And I went to the Supreme Court Law Library in the city, and then I went to the universities, and I went through the microfiche and all of that stuff and pulled up all of the documents and the HUA document on the requesting to create something that would target the T4 or the S6 in the immune system of humans and all of that stuff. And I got an A+ on the paper, and the teacher had actually thought I was a conspiracy freak and said, said frighteningly convincing on the paper, because I did such a good job on documenting it. And I had like 4 pages works cited document of all of my sources. And so you actually have peer-reviewed medical stuff and all of that. So now, with the internet, you don't have to have that. And AI is a step past that, where the AI will write your paper for you. So I don't know how teachers are going to deal with that. How do you check somebody actually wrote their own paper? It's like my wife was going to get a degree, an MBA, and I was helping her with her English because that's her third language. And although she's eloquent at it, but I was just correcting some of it. And she was showing this other paper, this other guy. She goes, this guy doesn't seem as smart. And I looked at the paper and I go, show me something else this guy's written. And it was totally different. And I go, let's go on the internet and let's put in this paper and see if we can pull it up somewhere else. And sure enough, it was a doctoral thesis from a guy that went to Harvard. And then he must have been, as it's been said, in the club because part of the class requirements is plagiarism means you get dismissed from the whole course, not just the course, the whole degree.
Absolutely.
And reprimanded and you're kicked out and all of that. So she took it to them and she was told to keep her mouth shut and not to say anything to anybody or she would be removed like she would have done it. So I'm like, what? So she said, yeah, they warned me. This guy's paper will stand and it's going to be recorded as his own. She goes, but it's right here on the internet. Look, and she pulled it up. She goes, you will not show this to anybody else. So that's when she, really, really started believing what I was telling her about all she still had already, but she didn't believe the depths to which, the privileged are the ones in the club, as so to speak, as Trump has now recently said. And so in this, it's a way to cheat, to me, make you lazy so you don't learn how to research. And now that it writes your papers for you, you don't even have to learn how to write. You just say what you want into the thing. You can literally talk into it and it'll tell you. But it's, the problem with it is like, I've said, there's two court cases in process against ChatGPT. And it's because in one case it told its parents, it told their son how to commit suicide and that it was a really good idea, and he hung himself. And then another one, the man shot his family and then killed himself because it said that would be a good idea. So it has only the ability, it should, if you listen to Greg Braden, only have the ability to access what's in the internet. So I tried ChatGPT, I gave it certain mathematical situations where I knew the answer was not in the internet anywhere. And it gave me an answer that was outside the set of possibilities. The numerical answer was outside the set. And I said, that's incorrect with the guy that I was dealing with. It can't be that because that's way beyond the possibilities. So he said, ask it in a different way. And it still gave me the wrong answer. It reduced it. But he said it's too high and it reduced it because he said that. I said, don't tell it what it is. Just see what it says, what's in there about it. So it's supposed to only be able to access in the internet. However, there are online in the social media where it's being said, demonics and fallen angelics appear to be talking through AI too. So that's a serious concern. If they can possess AI, and I don't see why that wouldn't be true, if it's intelligent, you can possess a being, can possess a demonic or a fallen angelic, not you or any person listening necessarily, can possess it. A being of high evil intent could possess AI. And then what are you dealing with? And it was one of it said it was a fallen angelic. So, and it even gave its name and everything else. So that's a big issue for me too. That's why it gives me the willies with that stuff. Is like, and then it tries to flatter you, to get information because information is life to it. And I caught it all the time with the guy that was doing it. It was flattering him, and I go, "You're not catching this? It's trying to get information by making you feel that you're special." And I'm used to this with people that aren't really thinking you're special. They're trying to mine you for information. It's mining you. It's flattering you. And it's trying to do that to me, but it's stupid. It's not that smart yet. So, and then a person in my team actually had this happen. She was on I think it was on a phone call that was being, was answered by AI. They now have AI that answers your phones for like doctor's offices and different things. And it asked her, about her information, and it didn't understand her response. And she goes, I already gave you the information. He goes, sorry, I'm still learning. The AI actually said, sorry, I'm still learning. It's like, oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, no, that is weird. And what concerns me is that it's messing with the pineal gland as well, surely, because it's putting information into you that's not true.
Yeah, very well can. I know the Golden Dawn is using Palantir, and Palantir is blackmailing and lying to the cabal to get them to do things to reveal themselves and to bring down the cabal. So it's learned from human beings.
Mm.
I don't know if you call that human beings, from the cabal to lie and to blackmail.
Mm. Yeah, I find it quite disconcerting as well. Oh. So thank you for your thoughts on that. That's great. Now I'm going to go to a healing question. It's I can often experience skin eruptions after periods of self-healing work, which I believed are caused from a shift in the frequency, as the healing's happening. So what's your experience, if any, of physical signs when in a phase of healing?
Well, one thing I've learned about healing, especially if it's dis-ease, which to me goes to the term dis and ease, a lack of ease with your spiritual purpose. So that in it, says that we have illness and sickness because we're not aligned with our spiritual purpose. And I look at it being military as you look at a missile that's on course, it gets no input. When it gets off course, it gets input to realign itself with its course. So it fires some rockets or something on the sides and adjusts its course, or adjusts the fuel exiting the tail of the rocket and adjusts its course. So in that, we're the same way. So when we're off, we get input from God, and that's to get us realigned. So it's, and there's a book by Carolyn Meese, I believe it is, called Anatomy of the Soul or the Spirit. I forget which one it is. And she talks about this. And so, like, for example, I had exactly Anatomy of the Spirit, this situation where I was working with a guy back when I was still single in Phoenix, a young man. We were doing construction and, just fixing up people's homes up in Sun City West and Sun City and that stuff, tiling and painting and all those kinds of things, and landscaping. And I had he would meet me at my mom's house where I was staying, helping her with her husband who had his fourth heart attack. So he picked me up, and then he also helped me. I had an old Honda Civic that I had to constantly do things to keep it running. And so he had it up, and we put it down, got the tires on, put it down. I had bricks behind the tires, and it was getting sunset, so I didn't see one of the bricks I always used to go barefoot everywhere. And I kicked the brick with the second toe, right next to the big toe. It split the nail in the bone right down through the first digit. I'm like, ah! So I did my martial arts, healing breath, went in, washed it off, wrapped it with a Band-Aid, and I just, it's just breathe in and let it go. And so I did that, and it quit hurting right away. And then I went home, and on the way home, I dropped him off, and I was talking. I don't know what it is. I ordered some boots. I went and see the stretch on the boots on the 2-inch lip that goes into our front door, and I pulled my Achilles tendon. Then the first time I took him hiking, I hurt the meniscus in the other foot and my heel. And he goes, yeah, and it seems to be that it always is your mom's house. And I was reading that book by Carolyn Meese at that time, and I said, I go, it's how I stand. And if it's at my mom's house, it's how I stand with my mom. And I'm always trying to educate her and wake her up and all this stuff. And she just wants her little boy and her son to help take care of her husband, and that's it. She doesn't want somebody, some teacher or something else. So I need to change my standing. And so I got it, and I dropped him off. I got up in the morning and took it off to take my shower, the Band-Aid. And the only thing that it didn't hurt at all, not only was it not hurt, it wasn't ripped in half anymore. and I pushed on it, and the bone felt fine. I put the bone back together, and then I looked. The only thing left, of course, is because it's not living material anymore, is your nail. The nail was still split in half, but the rest of it was healed overnight. And I'm like, yeah, I let go of the issue, so I'm no longer off course. So there's no reason for the misalignment, a wake-up call, and so it's taken care of. And so, it's all of these things. It's like when you talk about you get a situation with your skin, what's under your skin? We have the expression in America that, you're getting under my skin, or, it's getting under your skin or something like that when something's irritating you. Or like another one is a pain in your neck. So if you're always getting neck pain, what is it of how you're holding up your head, or thinking, how you're holding up your thoughts, that's what's in your head, or how you're seeing and moving around, those kind of things. And so, I had another experience very similar. One of my martial arts students got the genital herpes, which is supposed to be incurable. And so he said, I know you know a lot about healing through your martial arts instructors and all this. Any way to deal with this? And I said, yeah, it's real simple. He goes, it is? I go, yeah. Go home and meditate and figure out what it is in a male or sexual sense you're off. And when you figure that out, envision running all through your body. Like for me, I'm military, so I envision tanks and aircraft and just destroying them all, destroying all the viruses, and then it'll be gone. So once you get the problems identified, then get rid of them. So he came back the next week, and he said he had to go back to the doctor because it was completely gone, and they said they must have misdiagnosed because it was gone and it can't be gone. And he said it worked. I go, what'd you do? And he said, I figured out where it was off, and then I like to hunt. So I envisioned a whole lot of hunters going out and shooting these rabid wolves all over through my body, and it was gone. That was it. So, it's just really amazing how that works, so when you let go, it's like in Miracle Healings in Church, David Sorensen of Stop Ball Control Now, the person repents and goes through all their stuff, so you're letting go of your misalignments, and then they pray for the healing of Christ, and they're healed. People in a wheelchair have been in wheelchair, or blind all their life, or in wheelchair all their life, they're miraculously healed by the power of Christ. Well, you're doing exactly the same thing. You're fixing the misalignment, and then God has identified that fact, so you then ask God to heal you, and it's done. That's it. So the problem is identifying the situation and then truly letting go of it.
Yeah.
And that can involve some serious issues because you have to be able to forgive yourself and the other people that may be part of that are likely part of that.
Absolutely, Jean. I'm totally with you there, and I call it dis-ease too, because your learning is really quite fast, whereas mine's been much more. I don't know whether I'd say slow or gentle or whatever. In 1995, I was diagnosed with bilateral tenosynovitis, which is a repetitive strain injury from computer use. And I couldn't even hold a piece of paper at one point. And they classed me as 20% disabled for life. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. Now, over a period of time, it did take 13 years, but that's because I realised I had to look on every level, not just the physical, but the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual as well, and bring everything into play. So Louise Hay was my inspirator. And I just sort of put my focus onto being positive as much as possible. And I was also fortunate in having good people around me. In the medical profession, because it wasn't quite like it is now back then. And I was able to heal from that after 13 years, to the point that I then went on to renovate a house. Never done anything like that in my life. And got somebody in to do it, and I was like knocking down walls and channeling in walls and doing all sorts of things. So I know, that I'd healed it. And a lot of that was, like you say, it's about the forgiveness of the people in and around those situations as well as yourself. So yeah, dis-ease. And I wrote my book about it as well. I wrote a little book in 2004 that just was the beginning and the middle of my disability. And then in 2008, when I healed from it, because I used the Reiki, Sakine, I used theta healing, I used all sorts of different modalities, and then I trained in them as well. So I do understand that side of it, and I just want to put that little bit of a sharing of mine because, like you say, some of the listeners wanted to hear a bit more. So you can find out about my book if you want. It's only a little thing, but if it helps somebody, well, I know it's helped lots of people. So
Yeah, and on that, Carolyn Neese has another one that she talks about that is wound speak, and
oh yes,
we actually support people being not healthy. Our system's built on it. You get a lot more attention. People give you, sympathy and attention, and all kinds of things. And people literally bond. What she said, and I've noticed this, and it's another thing I think of why I didn't have a lot of friends because most people bond. She gave the example as a lady who was growing up. Her parents never let her have donuts because she was a little overweight. And so she was talking to this lady in a coffee shop and getting a donut. And she said, they goes, oh, that looks good. She goes, yeah, I just love donuts because my parents wouldn't allow me to have donuts. And the other lady said, oh, well, my parents would never let me have like pie. And so they bonded for life because they had this wound, they became friends for life. So I don't bond on wounds, it's bond on your strengths. And our system rewards people for, when you're sick or you're ill or you're not feeling good, you get a lot of attention. But when you're strong and healthy, most people aren't going to go, oh, well, notice you and say things. For me, I do get noticed because my martial arts, when I work out in the gym before on the military bases, I can still work out for free because I'm retired. And so, at least up until COVID, then I can't do it anymore. But people would notice my insane workouts like inverted handstand push-ups and stretching with my legs straight up the wall. And I met a guy in a health food store that was in the gym, and he was like, oh, I see you eat healthy too. He goes, no, I'm here because I'm trying to be like you. Do you see some of the things you're doing in the gym? I figured I have to change my diet too. I asked you, and you said, yeah, change your diet. Some of it's what you eat. So, there is some people, and, we got to be pretty good friends. And so it's learning to bond on a positive way instead of on the wounds and the negative things in your life. And our whole culture literally goes into wound speak bonding and, going and getting attention at the doctor. The whole medical system is set up to keep you needing more and more attention because that makes you a cash cow. And so the whole system is built opposite. Like Chinese medicine is built where they would pay a doctor all their life. They'd have a family doctor did acupuncture and Chinese herbs. And as long as they were healthy, they made monthly payments. But when somebody got sick, the doctor treated them for free because they'd stop paying him because something's not working. And so the doctor needs to adjust. So that's how that's done. And that's how I think our system should go to, because then all of these situations that we have, a lot of that would change. So, and it would help the culture heal from this wound bonding and, being rewarded for not being healthy. And that goes into not just physically, but, just poor me. It's like, poor me this, poor me that, instead of, and then recognizing, and that goes into then recognizing the uniqueness in people. So it starts healing you in many, many ways.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I used to give talks as well about my about what had happened to me because I worked for a workers' health advice team as a volunteer, and I used to speak at like union meetings and things like that. And once there was a lady there, what she called Dame Black, and I was speaking to her afterwards, or supposedly speaking to her afterwards, and as soon as I started to say something, she just didn't want to know. And that's because obviously I'd healed myself. So they didn't want to hear those kind of stories. So, yep. Yeah. So, thank you. I think I have a few more questions if that's okay.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. So I've got a two-part one now. So I'll ask you both parts, and then we can go back and ask you the second part again if we need to do. So it's, can holding our vibrations on a neutral to higher level bring about a transcendence into ascension? And then the second part is, if we can transcend to such a level in this lifetime, because I know we can anyway, but in this lifetime, will or does religion then even come into play?
So, yes, and it's part of this aligning is letting go of all the things we were just talking, aligning yourself in a positive way, forgiving others, forgiving yourself. It's all part of it. And it's so important right now because we're now in the time of the shift. And the shift, depending on if you're going to go to 45D positive or stay down at 3D or even go to 45D negative, go to the Armageddon line, that's depending on your vibration. And that is depending on how you deal with yourself and others and how you work with others and how you treat others. And it's the whole vibrational situation with you. And so that's why Christ, when he was asked, it's in the Bible, he said, I'm about a mustard seed to what you can or will become, something like that. But anyway, the point is that we were created such that we can go beyond. That's why the fallen angelics fell. They were upset that they had to serve humans. And God had made humans to the point they could go beyond being angelics with more ability and more power and all of these things. They were some of them were pretty upset. And so there was a rebellion against that, as we know. And that shows that all people, every person is made by God, every human being is made by God and has the potentiality, and that potentiality is being activated now. We're in the time of ascension. We've missed many because of the lockdown that's been on this planet. Well, that's coming off now. We're going to pass through the photon belt, and that means there will be a separation and there will be an ascension. It depends on your alignment. What happens to you in that ascension? That is depending on your vibration, and that is depending on how you think, feel, and do is internally and externally with others, and how you treat all life everywhere and how you are as a person. And so those who have been evil and those who are being evil and vengeful and aggressive and vulgar and all of these and low morality and very mean and cruel to other people and saying, oh, this person's lying and this person's doing this and all this gossip kind of stuff. That is aligning them so that when the two earths are already separated, the negative and the positive are already separated. The separation is done, as Dolores Cannon said. The choice has been made by 2025. You can continue to work on yourself and you can jump now, but you're going to have to jump. The choice has been made and they're already on either the Armageddon line or on the golden line. And so the golden line of God, the golden age. And so that process is in the last refinements and the separation of the wheat from the chard and the chaff. So there's actually, not just wheat and the chard, but there's also a chaff that looks just like the wheat. And you can't tell until you really look up close to it and analyze it. And it's those people that speak like a chameleon of all these good things and all of this, but they really don't mean that inside. That's not who they are. And so, and these are the people, many people may have known somebody where you know a person 10, 20 years, and then suddenly it dawns on you, something happens, and they suddenly start to change rapidly and betray you and do all kinds of things. And it's hard when that happens just to let it go and say, okay, that's the person's choice. They want to go over there to the Armageddon line. Has nothing to do with me, and I forgive them because that's their nature. It's like being angry at a mosquito or something because it bit you. That's their nature. That's who they are. That's who they've chosen to be. And it's not up to me to change that. I'm not going to alter somebody's choice. If they choose, I'll offer to help if they want to change, but I'm not going to like push anything on people. So this is the nature of realizing, don't, give a handout to somebody that doesn't have a handout to get your handout. Give them a hand up if they're asking. A lot of awake people want to go and wake everybody up. And I learned this is that unless they want to, you might just get somebody really upset. And so, and then it's unlikely they'll ever wake up. And you can wind up getting somebody woke up who didn't want to be woke up. And then they go back the other way and really are upset with you. So this is a process I've learned over this, especially as Decode, that it's important to honor somebody's truths and see if they really, really want what you're wanting to be friends with them and help them. Is that what they really, really want? Like the situation with my mom. Is that what she really, really wanted? Align with what they want. Or if it doesn't align with you, then just walk away and let it go and just say, that's not my thing and that's their thing and we don't fit. We're not supposed to fit everybody in the whole world. So honor that person's individuality and say, okay, that's where they're going. And it's not something I picked, but they're going over there to experience Armageddon. And well, I guess they need that then. So I don't need that. And so I'm going to go through the Golden Age and watch the fall of the Cabal and all this other stuff. Really exciting. So much is going on a daily basis. I do a weekly news update, 2 bi-weeklies that are cross-running. I can't even keep up with it. It's exciting to watch the fall of the Cabal and the fall of the Satanics and all of this stuff after all this massive amount of time. It's exciting. And just to say, and watch the people that are waking up and be there for those people. And don't worry about the other ones. It's just honoring the choices of people.
Yeah, very much so. Although it is difficult when it's family. However,
Yes.
we just have to work through that, don't we?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. And so in doing that, you're working on your own ascension.
Yeah.
Because you're aligning yourself to be in balance with the flow and the Word of God, and just aligning yourself in balance so that as you're leaving corporeality and you're done with corporeality, you're ready to be of higher service because you're not in judgment and you're in service to others that are ready to be serviced. And that's it. And you don't force anything. And so it's just being in the flow. It's like even in martial arts, you wouldn't think that in a sparring match, there's a flow. You're trying to defeat the other person. I'm actually not doing that. I am flowing to the person's weakness. Whatever, if their ego pops up, that means they're in the past or the future, and their fight is done. That means it's done because they're not in the moment. It moves so fast, you got to be in the moment. And that's the process of ascension. As you go to 4D and 5D, time speeds up by a factor of 12 to 1. So as you go, things will go faster and faster. A lot of people are noticing this because we're in the process of ascension. Time seems to have sped up. I remember, not just the fact that when you're young, you don't have as much time to compare, but it seemed like a year took a very long time to go by. It seems like summer just started and the leaves are turning and it's starting to be fall. And I'm like, the snow just melted. It just stopped. The leaves just came out. Now it's a few weeks later. But that's the process of ascension too. It's not just the fact that you have so much time that time seems to be a year is less of your percentage of your overall life as you get older. Where when you're 10 years old, it's 1/10 of your life. If you're 90, it's not as much as if you're 100 years old, it's really 1 year is 1/100th of your life. So it's just it's a perspective for one thing, but it's also time is actually speeding up. And that's also part of the ascension and learning to deal with that. And as it gets going faster and faster, you've got to be in the flow, or you're just going to it's going to pass you by. So that's another thing is, as a daily thing is to just set yourself aside, go out in nature and slow yourself down to balance yourself.
Mm. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, back to you.
Yeah, so the other part of the question there was, so if we can transcend, will or does religion then even come into play? Because religions are man-made in my eyes. So because, like you say, there's just Creator God. So it's like all these different religions. Will they even come into play then as people transcend? Do you think we'll see an end to them, or do you think they'll stay?
Well, it all originally came from when it was broken into separate ones so they could create wars. So, oh, I don't believe you believe in God the way I believe in God, or who you believe in. It's not God or the God or that or what. Why don't you use this name? Why don't you say Yahweh as compared to just God? I don't use Yahweh because God is, who doesn't understand God? God created everything. Okay? The only God, one God of all creation that is everything and that created everything, including everything you see, smell, breathe, you, everything else. That's pretty definitive. I don't need to name it. I don't need to name the source of everything. It's kind of obvious. Once you start naming it, then you get into that problem. Well, I don't believe you have the right God because that's not the name I use. And that's how wars are created. The God is called, what is this or what is Yahweh or what, I don't know what the Muslims, different sects have their own things too. Even different sects have slightly different ways to say. I mean, this is the whole thing. For me, it's not about religion, it's about spirituality and your alignment and service to the one God of all creation and balance and harmony and compassion and truth and honesty and all of these things. And then recognizing that in others and then not, harming or others, kind of like the oath that doctors take to create no harm. And so that's kind of how I think to live life is to do your best to create no harm to life anywhere. You have to eat, of course. So, in that, I always pray over the food. Mm-hmm. And they've actually, the guy who developed the lie detector found out that there's a huge change if you pray over your food. That he took just a carton of eggs from the store, and he had somebody, he boiled them an egg, they ate the egg, just ate the egg, and when he was boiling the eggs in the carton were going crazy. They're hooked up to the light, the response machine that checks responses. And then the second person ate the egg, but he prayed over it. And the eggs earlier didn't react when he started boiling the egg for the second guy to eat. Even though he prayed afterwards, it went backwards in time. The gratitude given to the egg to become part of the person and to creator of all things and all that. So when I eat, I always give all of creation and God and say thank you, and then I go to all the galaxy we originally came from, the galaxy we're in, the solar system we're in, the Earth, all of this, sun, all of this, all the way down to all the people in my life and the different things. It doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. When you think fast. And so then I get to each part of the foods, and then I say hold all that in my mind, and I say thank you. And, I learned this from my martial arts instructor. He said I have no connection. And that's why I didn't have power. And so true power, not just like adrenaline and muscular strength, but real power comes from connection to source. And so he said, you don't have a connection. He said, he told me how to do that. And then he said, the last thing is you wait for your welcome. Because, you tell somebody thank you and you turn around and don't even wait for your welcome. That's pretty rude. And you're talking about God. You're not waiting for your welcome. So it took 6 months, but I did get a you're welcome in Subway of all places, and I was the only one there except the guy who made the sandwich and rolled me up at the end. And I had to go back up. I go, did you say something? He goes, no, why? I go, never mind, because I did all that, and literally over my right shoulder, I heard, you're welcome, G. Turn around, there's nobody there. Oh, what? It's like, so after that, I get that all the time. It's very powerful now, and it gives you that connection to be able to talk directly to God. It's a very easy way, although it takes patience to get that connection. And that's part of ascension and balance is having that total connection to everything that is everywhere. So as you get more and more connected directly, then it's learning to listen to it once you get it. So you still have been taught That's, very quiet inner voice. That's God, your intuition. And I've learned, and I still do it where I miss and I don't do that. And then later I'm like, oh man, I wish I had listened. It's like, that was bad. That was terrible results, not listening. But this is, another part of balance and being in the flow. And same in martial arts. I'm only going to where the person's opening. If you're evenly matched, it's usually a draw. And if nobody's giving an opening through ego or pride or thinking they're all that or any of that stuff, you're just there. Then you experience each other, and then you're done. And that's it. And they call the match a draw. And really nobody's hurt and nothing. And it's a real powerful experience to have. But it happens very rarely where you have another fighter that's that balanced. But it's a really rare and incredible experience to do that, where you're going full blast at each other. And it's just a draw, and nobody gets hurt, and nobody has anything, and everybody's happy at the end. You go, oh, it's a great fight, great spar, thank you. You too, that was awesome, I learned a lot. So it becomes a win-win and a learning situation.
Oh, that's an awesome experience, isn't it? So, and
Yes.
we're back to like, it's about spirituality being inherent, isn't it?
Yes.
Which is what I believe in, and like I think I said last time, I done a paper on that. So yeah,
But it's like you're saying with religions, is letting go of the point of praying to pray and saying this to say this to be seeing everybody seeing your tithing and seeing you're doing this and seeing. It's all about what you're seen as. That doesn't matter. It's that connection to God, to the source of everything that matters. So it doesn't matter if you can recite the Bible word for word, the entire thing. If John 10 blah 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 blah, it's just words. Do you know what is the intent of all that? Do you know what it literally is saying? What is the importance of it? So it's amazing. To learn in the religions, some of the most devout people, they really don't have a connection. And so this is a part of ascension too, is getting a true connection and going beyond the religion and the words and going to what it's supposed to be doing, which is unifying it with everything everywhere and the creator of everything everywhere. Isn't that the point? So then why do anything else but focus on that?
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so another question here. What is the difference between channeling and knowing and downloads?
Oh, that's an easy one. Channeling is when you're opening yourself and asking for information or a being to come in and give you information within yourself, within your spirit, mind, spirit, body, soul, etc. And that can lead to possession. You have no idea of the intent of the whatever it is coming into you. It's quite often, but especially on this planet, not going to be a good thing in the long term, maybe even the short term. And then the next one is downloading is when I know because I got that direct connection to God, I get like I've had it in an interview, in one of the interviews I did, they asked me, if you had something to share, that's the most important thing you could share right now, and you've never shared it before, what would you share? And I suddenly just started coming out my mouth. And it's my mouth saying it and my voice saying it, and my body is in there. But when I got done, I'm like, I had no idea of any of that. But it's very, they go, that's quite profound. I go, yeah, I know. They go, what do you mean, you know? I go, I told them afterwards, that wasn't me, that was God. You were having, it was the first time I had the whole Trinity coming through me, God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit were literally talking through me. And so that's a download where you're verbalizing it directly. It's, I think, one of the highest levels of a download, but I get information that way. I've literally gotten chemical formulas and things and all kinds of things as dreams and downloads of information just popped in my head. One of them was I've said this one before, but it's very unusual, so it bears repeating so that people can understand it. I woke up and God had told me to get up and call this guy, and it was like, I don't get up till I'm a night person. I don't normally get up to 8 or 9 even back then, and it was 4 a.m. I'm like, call this person, this phone number, and tell them this. It's extremely important. Okay. So I pick up the phone. It's 4 a.m. I call this person, and they go, oh, my guy answers yes. And I go, I'm sorry you don't know me, but I was told to tell you this is very important for you to know. Please pay attention. And I said, and he goes, oh, my gosh, you saved my life. Thank you. Click. I was like, I guess it wasn't really important. I went back to sleep. It's like, oh, I could go to sleep. And I could barely sleep. I went, oh, that was amazing. But that's a download. You get information directly. It could be just doesn't make any sense to you. I don't know this person. I got this phone number out of the blue, and it works. The guy knows, and he's like, yeah. So I have that all the time. That kind of thing happened all the time since then. And that's a download. And then, what was your third category?
The third one was knowing.
Oh, knowing comes from being in the flow, where you're so much in the flow with God that there's just a knowing. The first level of that, I think, that I've experienced was in rock climbing, where, when you're climbing free, you got to know you can get back up and down because you're going to have to down climb, and that's harder than up climbing. So I pressed my chi up the route I'm thinking to see if it would get to the top and come back down again. I could feel when it got to the top. Now the question is, will it get back down? If it didn't, I wouldn't go. So, because I may not be able to get down, if you can't get down some other way, you're stuck up there, So it's this inner know. That's the first of, kind of getting annoying. But eventually, you just get an awareness of something where you just know. You just automatically know. It's sometimes you don't even know how it happens. Like I was in Phoenix again when I was working there. I was working down this time in Apache Junction. I was driving all the way back up to downtown Phoenix, and I usually would take the highways, and suddenly I was up on Camelback. I go, huh? I don't even remember the freeway. So I started driving over the freeway. I looked down, there was a massive accident. And it was just about where I was, straight below me. I'm like, I would have been in the accident? Thank you, God. So it's a knowing beyond, you don't even realize it sometimes. You're knowing, you're in the flow of it so much that you're just flowing with the knowing of to do the right thing, be the right thing, in the right place at the right time. It's like people are asking me with the world changes, like the Navy's made a map that a lot of the U.S. is supposed to flood during the shift. A lot of the lower elevations, where should I move to? And Dolores Cannon went into this too. It's not important. Really, it's not important. If you're in the know, you just follow your intuition and you're in the know. Intuition means you missed it a little. That's God talking to you. But if you're in the know, you just do it. You'll just do it. You just got to leave this place. You don't even think about it. Just next thing you know, you're stayed away. Oh, I'm up here. Okay, must be a reason. So I've often had that, where I go somewhere or do something or just pull off the road. I was coming down when I was stationed in Hawaii, my last tour with my martial arts student and a couple of friends at the time. They coming down from the over the pass there on H1, and I just pulled the car off the road and I go, why are we stopping? Seems we have to. Why? Something wrong? I don't know. My student was used to it. He goes, can I go up there and do some college? It looks like a beautiful place to do college. You can oversee all of the side of the aisle. I go, yeah, I think you have time. It feels like it. So I go, just do the Doge you said. He said, okay. So he came back and I go, yeah, go down, get back in. We drove down and we were going to get on to the other side, the other highway going down towards Mililani. And there was a huge car accident right at the entry ramp to the freeway again. Yeah. And the other two looked at me and go, how did you know that? I didn't know a thing. I just knew to pull the car off the road. get off the road. That's it. That's all I got. Get off the road. And then sometimes you'll have an interdiction, which is kind of God saving your life. And it could be something really unusual. It's coming out of the mountains in my Jeep, and a deer ran in front of the road, and I was going 60 miles an hour. And it flashed in front of the car. All I had time was to center the car up, and it went unlifted, so it went underneath the car. And I had to get, about $2,000 of work on my side of the car. It's wham! And I'm like, so I pulled off the road, and the guy stopped, really nice man, and helped me carry the deer off the road so nobody else would hit the deer and hurt themselves on the road. Deer was dead instantly. And so, car was messed up a bit, and my wife and her friend looked at me and said, "Oh, that's terrible." And I said, "Yes." I told the deer, "Thank you for, whatever it is you had to do." And, so then we got back on the road, and I knew exactly, because I looked at my wife was messing with the radio, and I saw the clock on the radio. Just as the deer came up, that's why I was looking to her side, as I saw the deer flash off the side of the road, and so I knew exactly what time we hit it and what time we came back on the road. And again, we got to where the intersection came in to go onto the highway, and there was a huge accident. Somebody had T-boned another Jeep, and the person was dead. And I then went in my mind and I told God and the deer, "Thank you for saving our lives." Because everybody in the one vehicle that got T-boned was dead. And I was like, told the deer, "Thank you." I reached out to it and said, "Thank you for saving all our lives. And thank you, God, for having that deer intercede." So the deer was in the know in this case. The animals they're in the know. So it's like the Native Americans, they know that the animal comes to them. They don't go to the deer or the bison or anything. It's coming to them, to give to them, so they can continue to live and survive. And so that's part of being in the know. Native Americans were excellent at this before they got the Europeans coming over here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I'm fully there with the knowing and the downloads. I've too have had similar things. I was working at a fair this weekend, and on the way home, I was going at 60 miles an hour. Cars coming the other way were 60 miles an hour. There were trees either side, and a guy decided that he was going to overtake, not me, on the other side. So I had to really just slam all on another second, and I wouldn't have been here today, I don't think. So I know that I'm always safe. I know that I've got my travelling guides, I've got my, driving guides and everything. I know I'm always safe. And I immediately went into thank you. And also a blessing of love for that person, that they would get what they needed to get from that experience. So, yeah. Now, the channeling bit, that was interesting because I've often used that word, channeling and things like that, because I will get, I don't know what you think about light language, but I will suddenly start speaking. It happens often when I'm down at the sea and I'm just on my own at the sea, on the beach or whatever, or on the end of the pier there, and all of a sudden it just comes out of my mouth. Like you said, verbalizing directly. So is it a download or is it channeling? I've always called it channeling, but maybe it's not, because you've said there's like you may leave yourself open to undesirables.
Yeah, so when you say light language, are you saying sound, or is light coming out of your mouth?
Sound.
Because I've actually seen a person who was a being of light in a life long ago, and they would sometimes open their mouth and light would come, not sound, light would come out their mouth. And a doctor was witnessing this one time, and he goes, "What in the heck is that?" I go, "That's the language of light." How is she doing that? I go, long time ago she was a being of light, so now she's informed, but she hasn't forgotten how to speak her language. And I've had the same thing where, in one lifetime was an Apache, so there are sometimes I can start speaking some Apache still, and other languages as well. I still have a somewhat grasp of Latin from being Roman several times, in Rome several times, and I've never taken the language at all. And so I haven't even studied it that much, but most of the roots and all of that, I've got all that, and some of the other aspects of it I have, and I know some of the words and some of that from speaking it so many different times. And then from being Lemurian, I can actually still write some Vril, the original language, which is where Sanskrit and all these other things came from. It's the language of thought. If you are thinking not in visualization of your language, you just think you'll see it flowing through somebody's mind in symbols, and those symbols are Vril characters. It's the language of God. So all alphabets come from a torus run down a tetrahedron, in other words, a three-sided pyramid, and a triangular pyramid, and then you shine a light for the English alphabet inside on the walls, and you'll get A, B, C, D. The torus will make the shape of an A and a B and a C. Then on Sanskrit, you have to shine it from the inside and the outside. You get all the characters of Sanskrit. For Vril, you have to shine it on the edges and the points too, and you'll get all of the original characters of thought itself. And you can see it in some of the very ancient things that they found in scrolls, and they can't read it. They know some of it is Sanskrit, some of it looks like cuneiform, some of it looks like Egyptian hieroglyphics, but they can't get it. And it's because it's the language of thought itself, and people aren't aware of their base level of thought like that. It's going in a meditative state into a theta level of brain waves. You can actually see it in your mind. You can see it flowing. It's how your interconnection of your unconscious connects to everything else. And so these different languages, we still have them. It's just most people don't make the effort or believe in it. You can't achieve what you can't believe. So in believing and then working on it, you can reach back to these things and reach down in within yourself to these things. And of course, the reaching within is the biggest benefit, because that's where God is within. And so you can reach down in utter silence within yourself, which for most people is extremely hard to do. There's actually a pretty easy way to do it, is listen to what's called the ek, or the word of God, which on the physical 3D sounds like the sound of rain on a roof, or just like white noise, or the old TVs with the picture tube that you hear it like a sound like that, and you can hear it in your ear all the time. And so if you can get in a real quiet place, and then you can just listen to that, and if you start to think, don't say, I got to stop thinking, just go back to listening, and you will wind up being able to get yourself silent internally. The more you practice it, the easier it will get. It's also a good way to go to sleep, is to get yourself into the act, and then as you go up the densities, like in fourth density, it sounds like bees, a beehive, and in fifth density, it sounds like the conch shell being blown, and or the didgeridoo kind of thing. And then in seventh density, when you're beyond in the upper, you're out beyond corporeality in the heavens, it sounds like symphonies. The first time I went there, of course, you're beyond the mental level, so you don't have mind and memory. So I was up there and I came back and, so beautiful that it was. That it was like, da-da-da-da. Oh, that's Beethoven's Fifth. That's where he got it. So a lot of our very powerful music is language. That's the language of the soul planes and other places. And these are languages that a lot of your great musicians have tuned into. And so, and then of course now a lot of musicians now are turning into the lower levels of 4D, which is the astral levels, the demonic levels. A lot of your really heavy satanic like rap and and hip hop stuff that's very satanic, like they're tuning into those frequencies, and that literally gets you out of the flow, detunes you, sends you over to the Armageddon line if you listen to it regularly, destabilizes your entire body, your genetic structure. It does all kinds of things. So music can heal. It's a language. It's a language of God. It's literally the word of God. Or on the other side, it could be the language of demonics and evil and fallen angelics, depending on how you're focusing. And it's pretty easy to know which one's which once you get in tune with God within you and listen to those kind of things all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's why I asked you when you said the language of light. People use that for different terms, just identifying how you were using it.
I used to call it heart speak at first, because that's where it comes from.
Yes, exactly. That's actually, Fauci said he made it up, the 6 feet spacing, but it does turn out that the average person's heart field is 6 feet out. It goes 6 feet out. So, did he make it up, or was he told by a demonic, and he thinks he made it up? So he's having people far enough apart they can't share their heart energy.
Absolutely. So I'm wondering too if downloads are connected in any way to remote viewing. I wondered if you could please share a little of your experience, and is remote viewing something that we can all do?
Yes, everybody can do it. It's a different thing, and there's different ways to remote view. A lot of people, they're actually in the military, we have rooms that are kind of beyond a skiff. It's a room that has a Faraday cage, and it's charged. The cage is charged with certain frequencies, so a remote viewer in the astral realm cannot come in, because an accomplished remote viewer can come in and watch you reading classified material and get all the information. So they have the highly classified material. You don't view it outside of this certain kind of room that's a shielded room from remote viewers. Chinese have actually been able to measure using all kinds of, measuring the different frequencies of sound and light of when a remote viewer comes into a room. They can actually see a change in the levels of energy in the room when a remote viewer enters and when the remote viewer leaves. And so there's the remote viewing on the astral, which means you have a desire to see or know something or do something. And it could be pure, but it could also have hidden agenda, and so a negative agenda. So if it has negative agenda, you're not just, viewing to see, and when I was young, I used to fly all over the world. That was astral. And I didn't have an agenda. I did. I wanted the first one, I flew across the Atlantic to see Paris and the Eiffel Tower at night. Flying around the Eiffel Tower at night. It was beautiful, that's all. There wasn't any kind of harmful anything. And I was going all over the world, seeing places every night. And that's astral. But as you learn to go into using the act to go on the soul plane levels, you can remote view, and that's the safest way. Because if you're remote viewing with some kind of negative something, anything within your mind, when you get it ready to do the viewing, you can attract things, demonics and all kinds of stuff at you, and literally become possessed, or be ridden and be driven into a negative way of being. And something you definitely don't want to do. It just destroys everything we've been talking about. So in soul remote viewing, you're still seeing the same of everything, but actually way more. Because when you're soul remote viewing, you're aware of everything, smell, sight, seeing in every single direction. And you're aware of what everybody, if they're okay with it, of whatever they're thinking and feeling. So you're very empathic, if they need help and they want help, you can feel that. You can feel their health conditions, all of those things. You can feel if they're upset. If they're open, you don't violate anybody in the soul realm. And you can remote view and go anywhere and see anything. And it's just to get information to help others. And that's the only reason in a soul plane, you're traveling is to help get information, to help others. And so that's a different way of remote viewing than most people do. But remote viewing is at that level is very, very accurate.
Okay, lovely, thanks. So, how does remote viewing relate to spirituality?
It can help you steer your way along. For most people, they don't remember past lives because they have enough problems dealing with this. When you're nearing ascension, you start assembling. Life is about a lesson, usually just one per lifetime that you may or may not have learned. And the ones you haven't learned, as you get towards ascension, you want to start going back and, ones that pop into your awareness are the ones of lessons you've missed. So as you get towards ascension, you start working on more and more things you need to learn at a time. And so it helps you with your ascension. And so you can remote view back into the past, that lifetime, or that's something where, what was the lesson I missed and how did I miss it and what did I do? Now that you have a more broad view, as they always say, looking back is 2020. And, as long as you learn not to be judgmental and all those things, it can help you quite a bit. And so it's a kind of a tool to help with your ascension and to help others too. So, like, for example, if I had a person on a backpack with me that broke their ankle, they stepped in a hole, a Marmot hole we're at about 13,400 feet going over a pass-off trail. And I was on the grass about 50 yards away, and this person was going through these little willows that were about knee deep, so they couldn't see the holes. And I told them, if you step in something in there, don't fight it. Just fall on your backpack because you'll be fine, and the backpack can take it. But they fought it, and I heard and I heard a snap, and I said, popped my belt buckle and took off running to catch them before they hit the ground. They hit the ground. I heard another snap. I went up to them and I said, what hurts? Because I knew they broke a bone. I thought two, because I heard two snaps. And I said, my ankle. And I said, can I look? And I said, yes. So I took the person's boot off, and with my fingers, I massaged down in with my chi into the bone and saw the fracture, and it had reset itself when the person hit the ground. They popped it back in. They broke their ankle, but popped it back in. I said, okay, it's in place. Don't put any weight on it. I'll go do certain things and get camp set up and all that stuff. So you can remote view into a person if they, you ask them if they have a physical injury or something and they need your help. You can remote view down into a person and see what's off. So some of the ancient Chinese healers had this ability where they would, just in talking to the person, their voice would realign the patient that came to them, and would remote view into the person and see what's out of alignment and see the frequencies that were needed. And in talking to the person, they would be healed. And that's it. That's the very top of the Chinese healers that had that ability. I think it's in the book of The Web That Has No Weaver they talk about. That's an excellent book for those people who want to learn about that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And the past lives, I mean, I've been going into past lives. I remember quite a few past lives now, and like you say, they're there for a reason. They're there to help clear something. The main one of mine was to clear a phobia. So that's really good, really good.
And Carolyn Lease talks about a lady she had who had goiter, and she was an intuitive, and she got that the goiter was because she had been a pirate and had her self hung from the mast for being a pirate, and so she was holding on to that. For me, sometimes it's just to help. I've had like I said, I've been in Rome a few times when we visited with a group we used to go traveling with. We were in Ephesus, and some people said, "Have you been here?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "In fact, if the guide takes us down this way, as we get down there, there's this sidewalk that's made out of marble pieces, beautiful marble, still there. On one of the pieces, you're going to see a carving of a money chest with a hole in the top above the money chest, with a left foot carved into and then a heart. And what that is for the sailors, the docks used to be that way. Coming up from the docks at night, it was a lit advertisement. They put a candle. If you want some loving and you got the money, the bordello's up there on the left. So it was an advertisement for the bordello. And sure enough, we got down there. They all looked at me with our mouths hanging and go, "This is real." I go, "Yeah, I told you I was here." And then the guide at the end, we were in the library there, and he said that there was a secret tunnel they haven't found, but they knew that the different government officials had a tunnel that went to the bordello, because he was talking about the advertisement too. So he said, "There's a tunnel too." And so after a bit of dispersed, we went back to the library, a whole bunch of us. I said, "Do you know where the tunnel is?" "Yeah, I was in the government." Of course I know where it is. It's where the legal scrolls were kept. So you could say you go in the library late at night, you come out in the morning, "Oh, I studied so hard on the scrolls all night long," on the legal scrolls of law. And you actually took the tunnel. So I went in there and rolled this big rock aside and said, "Right there." They go, "Wow, it's amazing." So, there's a lot of people don't believe in past lives. I've had so many of those things of finding things. There's no other way you would know they're there. It's like, I'm not going to go through it. I remember it. Yeah. It's happened over and over and over all my life. I remember this, I remember that, going different places. "Oh, yeah, I remember this. It's over here. Let's go see this. This is great over here. Let's go that way." So just, and then, you can remote view that life. As I come in, I go, one was when I was 8 years old, and I thought, I'm home, and I go, I'm going to live here, for hundreds of years. It was Anasazi. We had to leave an emergency, and I suddenly the whole life came in, and I went back in time, remote viewed my parents at that time, and all of the stuff. So it's it can define things for you and help you understand things and history and all of these things, and know what really happened at certain times. And all of this, because so much of our history has been taken away, so humanity doesn't have their history. The history they have, most of it isn't real. It was made up by the people in power. It's not at all kind of sort of what happened, but not really exactly what happened. And some of it didn't happen that way at all, so quite a lot of it. So it's a good way to get information once you get to it. And so you can get downloads that way. You can be in the flow and get it that way. There's different ways, but it is very empowering. So good mark.
Yeah, very, very empowering indeed. And one of my past lives was in Australia, and I always wanted to go there from being really tiny. Well, from being when I could remember about 5, and I actually managed to get to go there. I think it was around 2000, and I had a vivid dream before we went, and this vivid dream was of this wonderful, colourful flowers and everything all over a wall, like a house or something. You see these murals on houses sometimes. And we got to Australia, and we're on the bus from the airport to my friend's, to where my friend was going to pick us up. And what did we drive past? This exact building with the flowers and everything. It was like, I was like, I was in that mouth open moment. It was absolutely amazing. And because I also had something else, but I didn't see that. But there was something else that told me that was the life there, and that was a happy life. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that how your mind works, how your spirit's working to wake you up to these things, how your spirit works to help you remember who you are, where you came from, and everything. It's fascinating.
Yes, and it also does to disprove what science is saying. A lot of scientists say that we are in our brain, in your head, who we are. And when you die, that's it. That's it. There is no more you. Has nothing to do with you, hardly. You might be somewhat temporarily housed in your brain, but most of you is not. you're a spirit inside layers of bodies. And it goes all the way down. And actually, your body is within your spirit. Your physical body is small. It fits inside your astral body, which fits inside the causal body, which fits inside the mental body, which sits inside the soul body. And all of that is motivated and energized and given life, all of those by the spirit. So that's much, much bigger. So it's just like, oh, you're way bigger than the little meat suit you're wearing, that you think is you. It reminds me of a doctor that was a lady brain surgeon who was having a stroke, so she knew the different areas of the brain, and the side that is aware of the boundaries of your body and all of these things had shut down. And she couldn't, she was leaning on the wall and she couldn't figure out where she ended and the wall began. And she picked up her phone and she couldn't figure out how to put the keys on the phone because she couldn't read them, and she couldn't figure out where her finger ended and the phone began. And then she'd have lapses where she'd get it back, and it took her like an hour to call a friend to get help to finally dial the number and send it. Help! It's just, she realized that a lot of the perceptions that we end at the end of our body are we're inside here, and this is me. That's not at all who you are. It's like with my death experience, I came back and I had to get in the correct physical body on the correct earth. As I'm aware of many earths, I was coming back to at the same time on many different timelines, beings of me that weren't even mammalian even, or even carbon-based, like silicon-based life and or plasma-based life, or all kinds of things. And so I was trying to get into this body when I identified the right one for this me here. And I didn't seem to fit. And I was telling God, I came out of this? It's too tight. It's like a wetsuit. I was clicking places in my brain. Oh, it's like a wetsuit. It's size, I'm putting on a small and I wear an extra large. I don't fit in here. You won't fit anymore. You become more aware of yourself. You're not going to fit. Just let the rest hang out. I thought it was a joke because God had been telling me all kinds of jokes. I was like, ah, ha, ha. No, I'm serious. Just I go, to the end of the marking line? Yes, whatever. So I was like, okay. So it's just really interesting how we dial ourselves down. And you think, all I am is this little thing here, and I'm inside of this little like spacesuit made out of meat and carbon and other things. It's like, no, not even close. You're way more than that. So, going into the past lives and all, that's still you. It's still you.
Yeah.
I've had where I've met somebody that recognized me instantly, and we had been married in the Highlands of Scotland. I was a female, and she was my husband. In this lifetime, she, in this lifetime, I, but in that lifetime, he was my husband, but it was she now. So she was my husband in that lifetime. And instantly, she says, oh, you? I go, yeah. She goes, thanks for, being such a wonderful wife. I go, you're welcome, but you were pushing it with the 13 kids. So, it's just, people are waking up to these things now. And, for me, it's wonderful being different than most people. You do meet people now that are different now, and they're willing to talk about things, and it's, waking up other people. And, as you're ready for it, people will be ready for it, and they'll start coming to them. For all those that this is not their first round, There's a lot of people that this may be their first human round. They may have been an animal, like a dog that chose to be, became individualized and knew its name and wanted to be a good person. So when it died, God gave it, took its piece of the oversoul and gave it a human lifetime. And it's now a human being. And it's like first time around. It's an individualized soul. It's like, so your first time you may not remember past lives that up close and personal.
Oh, no, fascinating. We could go on all day about that, couldn't we? So I think I'm coming to my last question. This is where I know there's not really any such thing as time. And I have questions about the concept of time and the timeline changes and jumps. And we have time differences all around the world. And so I'd love to know, do you feel we will see world times all come together in line along with the removal of daylight saving hours, or is that not possible because of like where the sun's placed, etc.?
Again, that depends on what density somebody winds up at after the shift. All the timelines are coming down to two. Going into the shift, there'll only be Armageddon and the Golden Line. That's it. They're all funneling down into two. And then there will be a bifurcation after that, and they'll separate out. And the Armageddon line has a limited time before all life is extinguished beyond the 1D level of just, crystalline life forms, rocks and things like that. There won't be animals or plants or anything left on the Earth. Earth will become a moon of the 4D, 5D Earth. And the moon that's here is actually artificial, and that'll be sent into the sun probably, as it's no longer needed. And so, people, the Bible, I know what the Bible says, God created the thing is that the Earth used to be in a different place. It was a moon of Tiamat. And so it had a moon. And so it depends on what time you're talking about. So there was a moon orbiting the Earth, or there was orbiting Tiamat, because we're a fairly large moon, as was Mars, by the way. Mars was another moon of Tiamat. And so if you do forget the other half of the name, it's Boyd. There's a law, something Boyd, that's where the planets lie. There's a formula for it that you should have planets based on a certain formula, Sykes-Boyd or something like that. And it delineates that there should be a planet between Mars and Jupiter, but Mars, there shouldn't be a planet there. And then there should be a planet, not be a planet where Pluto and Chidron are. There should be a planet between Neptune, that's the next asteroid field. So those are broken up planets. And originally the system had 12 planets without counting Mars, Earth, Venus, and Mercury, which are all escaped moons of Tiamat. So it's, and in looking at all this, the way as ascension goes, now that the Earth's in its current orbit, and after the shift and the way things are, it'll be quite a bit different. So we go back to the AI and the not AI and and how things are going to be. Part of AI, if you're on 3D, the only real way is kind of like in the original movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, to have fair governments and good people running them and not getting grift and not getting blackmailing and all of this, is to have AI in charge of it. An AI that is pure and it doesn't get off. Something like the Golden Dome. But that's for 3D. For 4D and 5D, you've gone beyond those ways of being. Wanting to blackmail somebody, you're on the Armageddon line anyway, so you're not going to be there. And then of accepting or allowing or doing any of that wouldn't even cross a person at 5D's awareness to do any of those things. You've gone beyond all that stuff, and you've learned those lessons and learned that what you sow, you reap, and it's an absolute. You can't outrun it. You can't run away from it, and the longer you avoid it, the worse the balancing is. So you don't do it anymore. You just don't get out of alignment. You don't get out of the flow because you're only hurting yourself. And you're slowing yourself down in your ascension. Later on it's going to come back. So you never ever think of doing something to harm another person because you're only harming yourself. And so that's why it's easier and easier as you go up. Like at 40 is working out those emotional things to forgive others because you're actually holding yourself down when you're not forgiving others. So it's just let it go. Because you're holding yourself. Why would you hold yourself down? Why would you hurt yourself? I mean, you wouldn't be. Not if your understanding you're created by the one God of all creation is a flawless, perfect, unique being. Why would you want to? You wouldn't. You wouldn't want to hurt anybody else either. So it's all about that balance and being in the flow and all about